Welcome to the Earthworks podcast, where our team will share the jargon of carbon from many of our turf friends from the past 30 years.
Hello all and welcome to the Earthworks podcast. I want to start by saying thank you. You just made the best click of the day, because you are in for quite a treat. We have a great conversation this week. This is me, Jack Higgins, and this week I had the pleasure of interviewing Jay Lo Monaco. Jay and I have worked together for the last 10 years with our colleague as well, and you'll hear Jay talk about Scott Orendorff. He gets a couple shout-outs in this podcast. So I really just am very grateful. All of us at Earthworks are very grateful for you listeners. We've had some recent successes and some new subscribers on our YouTube channel and subscribers to the podcast, and we are just very pleased, and we want to thank everybody for tuning in. We're having a lot of fun doing this. So without much further ado, I'd like to introduce this week's conversation. Jay is the owner of Paul's Best Lawn Service. He bought the company, he and his brother bought the company from their father a couple years ago, their father Paul. So that's where the name comes in. And he really gets biological soil management. We have a lot of fun working together, because he understands the value in working with the soil. And his customers understand the value because they see the beautiful turf. And Jay understands how he is making an environmental impact by lessening his impact, right? He's able to get things done with lesser inputs. And the customers really reap the benefits in that they get to live with beautiful fine turf in their front and backyards. And in this year of 2020, the year of coronavirus, those customers got to be at home, stuck at home, in a beautiful setting. And Jay kind of gets into talks about some of that and a little bit more about his approach to business. This was a fun conversation because we got to talk a little bit about business. So without any further ado, please enjoy our conversation. This is me and Jay Lo Monaco, owner of Paul's Best Lawn Service. All right, Jay, thank you so much for coming on.
Right on, man. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Likewise.
So let the listeners know, you and I met probably about 10 years ago, I'd say, around that.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And at the time, I believe you were just kind of taking over management of this company, which I'll let you explain was in your family. Is that right?
Yeah, my dad started the company in 1978, and my brother and I bought it in 2012. So we were kind of in the process of purchasing the company and taking over like day-to-day routines. My dad had some health problems and was, kind of had to retire at that point. And so that's what we did. And so we kind of came on like right around that time. I'd been working for him for about 6 years prior to that. So we were all in it. And again, brought up on it. That's the one thing that my dad's done. So we just kind of
well, so let's talk a little bit about Paul's Best. You guys are located in Northern Virginia, mm-hmm. and that's the market you're servicing.
Yeah, we're predominantly Northern Virginia inside the Beltway. So Arlington and Fairfax County. We used to have a bigger service area. My dad was running it. We went out to Maryland and did a little bit farther into Fairfax County, but we've just shortened it up and changed some of the service offerings that we do. So
excellent. And what services do you offer?
Right now, we're pretty much strictly grounds maintenance and turf. So we do draining and grading solutions and whatnot, but we don't do any more hardscaping or installs. We'll do installs, like we have some designers that we work with, but we have one guy that we predominantly basically funnel any of those leads to, and all he does is hardscaping, and so patios and big landscape jobs. So they're just better equipped for it. And we just kind of decided, really after the housing market crash, like back in like '08, like a lot of those larger jobs dried up. And so maintenance was just, really a lot of bread and butter. And so when we bought the company, we, really took a look at kind of what we were really strong at and whatnot, and just decided to phase out that part of the business.
So you focus in on maintenance, which is making applications to home lawns
Mhm.
and to also landscape beds.
We do now. We just basically do the turf. So we take care of anything on the outside. We do bed maintenance, but we don't do any shrub care in house. We sub that out. And that's the thing, is we really only work with like one company doing subs for shrub work, and then another company doing hardscaping work. So we have a pretty small circle, so it keeps the quality up. And so yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you see, this is why I wanted to talk to you, because I know that you really kind of dialed in this company when you took over, and focused in on what you're good at, like you said, and it's really maintenance on turf, providing, setting high expectations for the customer, and then coming through. And
Mm-hmm.
you also mow, so you keep control of that. Is that right?
Yeah, so we did. We really, when we bought the company, we really had to look at all the whole book in general. Just, again, not really knowing my family business is a blessing and a curse. So anybody that's like worked with family can appreciate that.
Yes.
So my dad was pretty closed off in how he communicated about the financials and kind of how he, operated the business. We were, in the back seat to watch him run things. And my dad really would always say that he was just really a hard worker, not a businessman. So he really focused on doing a better job than other people. So that was his main thing. So we had a good reputation, and the quality of the work was really high. We were always highly rated in all the review process when that was implemented and whatnot, in the market. And when we looked at the business, when we bought it, there were just things about the way that it was run that weren't just very efficient. So we really had to tighten up things, financially, because we weren't going to last very long if we didn't. So about
So
2 years,
you kind of felt like your backs were against the wall when you started.
100, but they've really felt like our backs against the wall, like from the beginning. I feel like this year has been like the first year where we've really been able to take a breath.
Okay.
So we've been really fighting an uphill battle the whole time. There were so many things that we were changing. So you can only, like when you have 100 things that you want to change, you can only focus on a few and do that. And because you're really managing, your customer base as well. Like you can't change too much without, making some clients aren't going to be happy with everything, and you're going to lose some people along the way. And so it just, that whole just process of the business ownership and just kind of learning those things and what's going to work and what's not, and then implementing them was just a challenge, man, but that's the fun of it for me.
Well, yeah. And it's also cool because that's kind of a good analogy, good metaphor to the agronomy side of things,
Yeah.
right? Like building the soil, it's small steps over time, and you just follow them through.
Yeah.
And also training the plant, to the same extent, training the turf to withstand the pressure that you're trying to put on it. So, but I'm excited, and I'm grateful that you got on here, because I know that yours is a success story of making those changes, and also taking risks, like, making those changes that seem somewhat risky, but you take those risks and reap the reward. So we left off. You had your backs are kind of against the wall. You had to look at the business and find out where you were profitable, how you could be more profitable, cut out the fat, and really dial in on, and for you guys, it turned out to be turf, both applications and cutting.
Yeah. So that was without question the biggest the biggest change there. Is we got rid of the hardscaping and focus on the turf. And so prior to me buying the company, that's where I worked as my dad's fleet mechanic for 5 years. And then when I started coming up and doing in the sales side of it and working and managing accounts, he wanted me to do the turf. It's just kind of when I got assigned. He's like, you do the turf, you know? And so when I took over that, I had met Scott, and I actually called him to make sure I could plug his name, because I feel like my success is due to a lot of just being around a lot of really good people that have helped me out along the way. Scott's definitely like been
Absolutely.
instrumental in
Scott
Yeah.
Ornsdorf, a distributor sales rep that I've worked with for the 12 years that I've been doing this. And he is very good at what he does.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
good. Works for
He's just a really
landscape.
good dude.
He's a great dude.
Yeah.
He's generous.
Yeah.
And that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
He's generous, and that goes a long way.
Yeah, no, it was really like he took over, he was new, taking over our account after a guy had been there working with my dad for like his whole career, basically. My dad, that's definitely something about us. We do keep a small circle. My dad did. And Scott's the only guy that I deal with. And really the main reason is because he taught me so much about like agronomy. Like I had a lot to learn. So when we bought it, like he came in really at a good time, because I kind of was evaluating what we were doing. And, obviously as a business owner, you got to figure out how to monetize what you do, but it's a balancing act. You can't, overcharge, you can't undercharge. You want to offer a quality product. And at the time when I started working with Scott, he just basically put me to school. I actually went, I have my original book from my first Sales Academy class, man, that I did with Joel, and it was at Ripken Stadium, man. I would show it to you, but it's at my office in Paul's Church, man. But it's packed with notes, and I go back to that all the time. And I think that it was just kind of like a really like cool time to it's like our origin story. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it was a good time for all of us to kind of connect. And when I was looking at our book and looking at what I thought we could be strong at, we wanted to make sure that as a company, we maintained a solid reputation. Like personally, I want to make sure that my dad's name is always held in high esteem. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to be able to please every single person. Some of the things that we were going to do, we knew we were going to anger some people, and some people weren't going to understand. And, at the end of the day, people just, have to do what they think is right, And so when I looked at the book, I really wanted to focus on that. And because I was doing turf, I said, we're going to figure out how to make this thing work. And so that's kind of how it started. And initially we had the guy that was running it, or basically managing it beforehand, still works with the company. His name's David. He's a really sharp guy. He's been with my dad since high school. And
yes, and I've met Dave.
Yeah, really good guy, really, really smart guy, really quiet, just a really good guy. And he had kind of worked with customers and really did a lot of a la carte stuff, and then started to put together programs. And so the programs were kind of in place where they were tiered based on budget. And so we had a different level of quality across the board initially. And
now let's just talk a minute about how you review that. How do you see that? How do you know that? What are the sort of things that you're evaluating as you're looking across your customer base? And maybe further, what are the expectations that customers are asking for?
Right. Well, that's like the $1 million question right there, is the expectation. I think that was, for me, not having like a ton of background like on that side in terms of like how the programs that were in place or how the work was being offered, how it was set up, and really what was the decision making going on behind it. But I had my own process of evaluating. And so when I looked at it, my initial thought was I needed to establish a baseline of control. And the conversation really started is because we got a lot of phone calls from people that were not in a top tier program. We had 3 programs, and they varied in levels of control. The top tier program was basically everything. So it was essentially both a preventative and a curative type of program. Okay, so adequate nutrition, but treating weeds and disease preventatively and curatively, right? And so the bottom tier program had less applications, right? So then we started getting a lot of calls about people that wanted a green program, organic, and things like that. So we offered a straight organic, or quote unquote organic program, which is basically no pesticides. And we also, people didn't want to do anything other than just spray weeds. And so we had some herbicide stuff. And so it became a lot to manage. And it became a lot of phone calls that we had just from different people wanting essentially the same thing, but not wanting to invest the same thing. And so that's a conversation nobody really likes to have, especially with a client that's been with you for a long time or had a relationship, not necessarily with me, but with my dad and the company.
Yes.
And so there was a lot of, I feel like we did a lot of backpedaling in the first few years, really until about 4 years ago.
Okay.
We were really trying to, do a lot of different things that I think that we were still trying to appease everybody in the initial years when we bought the company. So, but not until I would say, I would say not until the end of the 2016 season did we really say, okay, this is what we're going to do, and that's it. But that's kind of where it started. Was we got a lot of phone calls just from people that either wanted more and didn't know they could sign up for more, or people that wanted the premium without investing in it.
And didn't understand what that cost. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that, and I think on our part, I don't necessarily know if communication has ever been a strong point for a lot of small business owners, and really the importance of the one-on-one and whatnot. And so over the years, and really this is, again, I'm basing this off my own experience, is that I felt that I really just had a limited amount of information when I started, and not only just in running the business, but in terms of the agronomy side of it. And now, 8, 9, 10 years later, man, I'm not the same kid that bought the company. I'm not the same kid that's putting, fertilizer out on somebody's yard. You know what I mean? So there's an education piece that I felt was lacking, and that's kind of what we started to work towards with our customers, is educating them about the process. You know what I mean? So there's a lot there, but it really came from complaints. That's kind of where the question started to come. Why are we getting these phone calls? Because if you want to have like a really good reputation, you got to provide the kind of service that people can't even dream of leaving your company.
Absolutely. So what are some examples of some complaints? Like what would be something that you'd hear?
Well, in our area, disease management is number one.
Okay.
The brown spots, and so brown spots obviously can happen. You can happen, we some clients will call after we do an herbicide application, their weeds are dying, and they'll be like, I got brown spots. Well, that's going to happen. They got discoloration.
But you'd get out there and find it was brown patch.
Yeah, totally. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we pretty much in our area, in 10 years, I've only seen Pythium twice, but we see mainly dollar spot, brown patch. We saw some rust this year. It's pretty much the same type of pathogens around.
Red thread in the spring.
Exactly.
Sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and so and fungicides are a pretty premium product in terms of cost. And I think that on the residential side, we do all residential.
Mm-hmm.
We used to do commercial and whatnot. That's another thing that we changed. And it really, that was kind of the mindset when we started to really dial in the program, was really kind of looking at those complaints. So bare spots, brown spots, just overall like thin turf, problem areas, whether it was from, addressing where we couldn't grow grass, if it was excessive shade, if it was standing water. So it was really just going and evaluating, each property. And initially, one of the things that we implemented right away when I started working with Scott was doing the soil testing.
Yeah.
That had never been done. In the state of Virginia, there's different laws that govern each state, which is, on a side note, a little ridiculous because
Of course.
the benefits, whatnot are universal. So we wanted to separate ourselves early on. And so that's we started doing soil tests on an annual basis.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we first started getting our first batch of soil tests, we had, I'd say 85 to 90% of our properties had pHs of excess of 7. I mean, like 7. I mean, they were way out of whack. And it's because when I looked at the history, man, all we ever did was lime.
Yes.
We had a little soil, like not a probe, but this kind of a meter that would check the pH. It has like a little dial on it. And, we'd go out and pop it in there, and that was it. And, if it was low in pH, we'd put lime in, but not really understanding, the science behind it and what it does over time and the whole balancing aspect. We weren't necessarily doing the right things, for what we needed to do. We were literally offering clients what they wanted without telling them what they needed.
What I love about looking at your soil tests over time is how when we started, there was outliers and they were all on either side of the curve.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, each site got so consistent with the other, between calcium magnesium ratio, phosphorus, organic matter, sodium, like they just started to reflect each other as opposed to all being wildly different. So you saw that the program that you were implementing was bringing everything into balance. It's a really cool long-term case study.
Yeah, no doubt, man. It's been I think it's been almost a decade, man. And it really has. That's actually, Scott and I were looking at that this year. They're so consistent over the past couple of years. And that's the thing that we had to really balance, not to use a pun, man, but you have to balance kind of what you are able to sell to a client on a residential side. You're not going to be able to, like when I talk to clients about bringing them on, like we really promote, just kind of on a side note saying, hey, listen, go and watch the Masters or go look at what Augusta looks like. Mm-hmm. That's arguably the most controlled landscape environment in the country. Okay. Yeah. They get all the top talent that volunteers down there that's shut down 9 months out of the year. You got irrigation, extremely high budget. They got
millions of dollars of technology.
Everything. Yeah. And you can see it. I mean, it's a beautiful, my uncle's a huge golfer and has been. I've watched the Masters every year since I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And, before I even knew about grass, you know what I mean? And so that's kind of what we tell people is we want to make your lawn look like that, but on a residential quote unquote scale. So when it came to the soil testing and dialing those in and getting those things, really what we were going to address, we can only say, this is what we're going to address. Otherwise we're not going to be able to sell it. You know what I mean? It's just too pricey.
Yes.
And so, but we really, over time, again, over the years, we phased out all the other programs and eliminated them. We kept shrinking and shrinking, tweaking the program and, adding carbon in. That's another thing we haven't really talked about. I mean, really how, initially we started using one carbon product to replace something that was discontinued in the summer.
Okay.
We started using the 545 and, it was just became our foundational product in the program and in all the programs, regardless of the budget. As we kept going and looking at the soil tests, we said, okay, we just need to really focus on the basics and the foundation, just like the company. Like, our foundation of our company is our renewals every year, man. Like we have very loyal customers. I've got great customers, man. They've been stuck with us and that's the nucleus, right? So next to that is like, well, what's the service offering? We need to make sure that, the foundation of what we're doing is right. And so over time, we just kind of eliminated all the crap basically and said, we're not going to do this stuff. We're going to do this because we know what we're talking about. You know what I mean?
So you made decisions with your own budget to kind of eliminate the items that you would rather spend that budget dollar towards something more beneficial.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And you brought down overall nutrient levels in the programs as well
Totally.
too.
Yeah, we probably put
Like,
out at this point, we put out half of what other people do in terms of what, because the plant doesn't require it. I think the biggest thing that I have learned is just um, how little plants need from us. Like you really don't need to manipulate it.
No.
If you got good soil, water, and sun, they're okay.
Yes, yeah. You don't need to over-engineer some man-made program. You just have to get on the path with nature and let nature do the rest.
Absolutely. I firmly believe that. In fact, that's really, really just an incredible like concept when you think about like a residential lawn, or any lawn in an urban environment is a monostand, man. It doesn't exist anywhere in nature, anywhere. So you're trying to control something that, doesn't exist anywhere in the natural world. So what you're trying to get rid of are pests. So, and a lot of people really don't recognize that you're dealing with a living organism. It's sick, it's subject to stress, it's got all this other stuff going on. So we just said, we know all this stuff, and it's our job to communicate it. And if people want to tap into what we're doing, then those are the people we want to work with. If they don't, we totally respect that, but we can't do it another way. Because I think that for me, like once I knew this stuff, I couldn't go backwards. I'm like, if this is like legit, then I'm not going to like really try to sell somebody something and just not be authentic, man. Like I don't want to.
You're an authentic guy.
I just don't want to be that guy. You know what I mean? Like I'm just not. I just didn't want like reputation is key, man. You know what I mean? And I think that
you mentioned that already. Like it was part of taking over your father's business. That and it instilled in you that this reputation. It's not only my reputation, but I've now got my father's reputation here too. It bears his name.
Yeah, no, and I was without question like the underdog coming into the situation. Like I had not. Never like haven't always like lived on the straight and narrow, you know what I mean? Like I definitely, went to the school of hard knocks, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And, it's crazy just how all this stuff, kind of comes to fruition and kind of, how your life kind of plays out. I had little kids. I just got married, and so I really was thinking about like, man, I've got lives I want to be a better example for them. You know what I mean? I don't want them to like grow up and like think that their dad was a chump. You know what I mean? So I'm like, whatever I'm going to do, I want to put whatever it is. I want to be at the top of the game. And I think for me, like, it wasn't really being about having the most clients. Like, we're never going to be that company. I wasn't concerned about how much we grossed. I really just wanted to be the best at what we did, and working with Scott over the years, I without question believe that we are at this point.
Well, it's something to be said about that. You are a small business that provides a paycheck for a lot of people. It's a wonderful thing. Like it's your livelihood, but you're providing a livelihood for other people. It's great, and it's that reputation as well. You've got other people on board here. You need to be profitable.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the risky thing when you make these changes. You're taking risks. How you mentioned that you've got great customer retention, but how else are you ensuring that you're profitable and meeting these expectations, that you keep that customer retention and that you keep the company moving?
Well, that's something actually me and my brother. So I own the company with my brother, and when we bought it again, we there was a lot of cultural stuff in the company that we had to overcome. Again, like there was not a lot of people that were jacked up about the changes I wanted to make. I definitely was a little arrogant early on, and really, wanted to prove to everybody that I was was the right guy to run the show, and So there was a lot of risk involved in some of the things. And I definitely am, I think that at any level, man, there's going to be people that are going to not understand what you do, you know what I mean, or what you want to do. And I think that I tried really hard initially to bring everybody on board. And then a lot of people didn't, understand it or really didn't want to understand it. And so, I just had to figure out a way to deal with that. And so I just really believed in what I was doing and really the direction we were taking. And so, on our end, financially, we definitely needed to be profitable or at least be break even at this point. We had we had to buy my dad out, like it wasn't given to us. We had to, take over we had to assume the role of the business, our accounting. My dad kept records differently than I looked at stuff. That was another thing that I work with a company now that, LMN, I'll plug them just since I'm on here, man. They are a software company out of Canada, and they, I went to literally the winter that I bought the company, or right before that, I did a workshop with these guys, and one of the things that they offer is a budgeting side. And so that's really, they took me to school there too. And so
agronomics and economics, man.
Yeah, it's the truth. And that's, it's funny. That's like Scott, I've heard that saying from Scott, I don't know how many times, man, and it's true, man. Like, and not having a formal, education, man, I've done, I spend a lot of time in the library, man. You know what I mean? I have, a lot of books. I read a lot. I just study people. And, bottom line, in business, you got to make the numbers work. And so, that was obviously like a challenge for us. And that just had to go with looking at the book. And so for me, I really got detailed initially in terms of looking at services that were profitable and whatnot, making sure that we were charging accurately and covering our costs. And that was a number of we had to do some price increases initially over, the first few years, which definitely lost some people, on that end. But the biggest change that we made was combining mowing and turf together. So we don't do one without the other. That was arguably the largest change that we did.
Wow.
And that was not met with, a ton of resistance, both within the company and outside the company.
Wow.
Guys that I had talked to that I was kind of like, throwing it around with before we made the change were like, you're crazy. Like other lawn care guys, like, you're crazy for doing that. Like that's all anybody wants to do is mowing. And but internally, people are like, man, you're going to lose a lot of guys. Like you're going to, it's just a bad decision all the way around. You can't just do, you can't not just do mowing. You know what I mean?
So why did you insist?
Why did I insist?
Yes.
Because honestly, I feel at the end of the day, there's only one way to grow grass. I mean, like you can talk about all these different factors, but unless you manage all of them, you're not going to grow grass. And mowing is technically a stress on the plant.
Yeah,
so you're not.
And it's happening. It's happening how many times a year, right?
Yeah, it's happening 30 sometimes a year.
Exactly.
You're never letting it allow. You can't. It won't push a seed head, so you can't propagate by itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got to plant seed. You know what I mean? You only got a certain amount of lifespan on that plant. Period. If it's healthy, okay. So, and living in the Mid-Atlantic, when you're cutting grass, if you're cutting grass on a treated property, it's going to be clean. If you're cutting grass on somebody that property that's not been treated, you're going to potentially take spores and weed seeds under the mower deck and go to the next house.
Wow.
So, we were thinking about this, and Scott and I just really talked a lot about this all the time. I mean, I called Scott so many times, man. Like, I mean, really, initially, I can't even tell you, man. Like, I felt like I was on the phone with him almost on a daily basis, man.
Yeah.
And
that's the level of generosity that we're talking
no,
about.
he really is, and that's why. I mean, I'm very loyal to him, man. That's why, and I really have to give him credit, man, because I wouldn't have known any of this stuff. He wouldn't have introduced me to you guys. I wouldn't have really had the same kind of approach. And that's really when I say, the reason why I push for it is because I think as a professional, people want to talk to us because they don't know about what they're what they want. And so if they have a need for something, it's our job to educate them on what we do. And so I can't tell you what company A, B, or C does because I don't know, and I honestly don't care. I'm only focused on what I do and making sure that, what I do is putting out a good product. And if people want to tap into what we're doing, I'm all about it. If
And
they
that it's
don't,
good for your customers, yourself, and your employees.
yeah, and it's good for the environment as well. I mean, I feel like that's a huge push that a lot of, I think that's a misunderstood concept when I say it's good for the environment. We do use chemicals in the program because you have to. It's really not a way to get around that. However, you can reduce how much you put out. You can also reduce, you can really create a better turf stand, that's going to have a deeper root system, a thicker root system. It's going to filter all that crap out better. It's going to drain better. It's going to do all this stuff. And so in terms
carbon
of
dioxide from the air down into the ground to build humus, topsoil, and lock that CO2 down in there. All the benefits that you can read about a really good turf stand only happen when you have a really good turf stand, right? So if you have like a dead or dying lawn, it doesn't help the environment.
Right.
You need to grow a vigorous plant, and that requires maintenance.
Yeah, that's the main thing. And so the mowing, without question, was big. We lost 50% of our mowing because of that. I mean, that was a huge blow, like from a financial. And like, dude, my brother was not about this at all. And when you have like I said, I love my brother, but we're very different as we approach the business, and I just wasn't going to back down because I didn't want to be just an average company.
What year was this?
So we decided, really what we did was we decided to go to one program in 2017. So one of the things about working in our industry is you can't really make changes mid-year. A contract, you already got stuff dialed in. It's just too much. It's just, you can't do it.
Right.
So you got to wait till the following year to implement whatever change you're going to implement. And you got to kind of wait and see how well your decision makes,
That's right.
So so in 2017, we cut out everything and went to one program and it included mowing. And then you can't do one without the other.
And that's the Paul's Best program there.
That's the Paul's Best program, man. And that's what it is. And so it doesn't deviate. And the way that we tweak it and we customize it to each lawn is based on what the soil test gives us.
Perfect.
So, and obviously new clients are going to potentially require more. And so we kind of tailor a first year customer a little bit differently. And maybe we'll load them up on carbon a little heavier initially in the first year, or, whatever, kind of just talking about where they're at. But ideally what you're doing is you're bringing on a client that wants to work with you, and we don't give people a time frame. We do, but what we say is that it's going to be a 24 to 36 month turnaround.
Beautiful.
I mean, you can't rush it. If you're going to rush it, take out your grass and sod it.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
You can do that if you want to do that.
Yeah. If you want to spend 15 grand at one time, go ahead.
Yeah. And so when we did that, it really raised a lot of eyebrows. I mean, a lot of people were like, you're nuts for doing that. But the way that I look at it, and anybody that owns a business that does mowing, if you look at your numbers, the mowing is it's like single digit profit, if that.
Okay.
And it's the most expensive service to offer. You got guys in the truck, you got the most machines in the truck, you got the most driving, it's wear and tear in your trucks.
Yep.
If it rains, you get behind. It really just takes up a lot to do it. And if you're not, you got to have sharp blades. If you're doing volume and you're cutting, 500-600 lawns a week, across the board, you got to make sure that those blades are sharp every week. You got to make sure that the mowers are clean. We have a mechanic that services the machines every week, man. We're cleaning them off. We clean them with bleach. We sharpen the blades every week. I mean, we've even debated going to changing the blades out every day. You know what I mean? So There's a lot of stuff that goes into mowing. And so I just, was thinking to myself, listen, man, I'm not going to apologize for what we charge people if it's right and if it's good and they're going to benefit from it. Because I think at the end of the day, what I've found is that everybody wants the same thing. They want a nice lawn that they can enjoy. That's what they want to do. They want to hang out in their space. And like some people are more into it than others, but at the end of the day, if they're going to invest, they want a good product.
Yes,
so,
they want to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And
so
we
that's
saw
really
that
at the end
this
of the day.
year of Corona, 2020 here, it was huge for that.
Yeah.
I'm at home. I want my space nice.
Yes, absolutely, man. And so that was a big thing. And so you do have to balance out what the customer wants with what they need. And I don't think it's necessarily a fine line. I think it may be initially when you're feeling out who you're talking to and whatnot. And one of the benefits that we had coming in was we had a lot of clients that really knew that we were pushing quality. They knew my dad, they knew me and my brother. The same guys that work for my dad work for me. So we did get smaller. Like when we bought the company, we had over 50 employees. Now we're down to 31. So, but we also have, a significant part of our book change. It's kind of what we do changes. And I don't really think that bigger is necessarily better. For me, it's really about the quality. And this year, I think, was a really good year to kind of learn, I think, not something that we haven't, I guess, remind us really just how important your customers that you have are. And a lot of, I think that to stop fretting so much about, new business and acquiring new people. So, even going into next year, our whole focus is quality. Like we pulled all our advertising. We don't do anything like that. So we are straight up word of mouth and really being selective on who we bring on, because the customers that have been with us deserve to have white glove treatment. So
yes.
to do that, you've got to free up your staff to be able to, do, site visits and monitor progress and make sure that you're efficient and make sure you get your apps done on time. And there's all kinds of, but there's just all these things that go, it's like playing chess. You know what I mean? There's these factors that are going in, not to mention all the stuff that's going in that you don't see with the lawn.
Have you seen Queen's Gambit, by the way, with your chess reference?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, man. My boys and I all play chess. My son is really good. So we do a chess club out here, man. And we haven't done it this year just with COVID, but yeah, man, chess is the real deal, man. It's a great analogy on so many levels, man. All the moving pieces and strategy and, offense and defense and knowing when to, just when to make your moves and timing. So yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, we talk about the risk, going back to the risk, and eventually, that's really, I got to the point where I said, you know what, people don't understand what I'm doing. And people don't understand how much work that I did with Scott. I've been to a number of Souls Academy classes. I've talked to you a lot. I've talked to Joel. I mean, I read, Jerry's book, which is money. I think that, again, I think when you know what I feel is the truth, then you can't go backwards. And so I just said, we're going to do this and it's going to work. And I don't really care what people say.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did.
And you see it work. I mean,
no question.
You've seen it in the product that you're producing for your customers, the people's properties. And you've seen the difference in the amount of nitrogen that you've put down to get there. Yeah. It's
awesome. And that's the thing. It's we've really got the program dialed in now that we really haven't changed it in like 4 years, I don't think. And I think we might have tweaked some stuff, but in terms of amounts and where we were putting some things, like where we were trying to kind of balance when we were doing apps based on just our climate.
Yes.
And kind of what made sense with timing and what time of the year we were doing it. And then put some foundational products in there and locked it in. And again, so we've seen a lot of consistency. And really, I think that one of the strongest points, going back to the foundation and looking at the soil part of it, is that the plant is healthier. And so in our area, we just aren't prone to disease.
Geez, in your area, you are the disease capital of the country.
Yeah.
And that was a question I wanted to ask. I mean, what do you feel like your disease pressure is like at your place?
At this point, sorry, man, I got to adjust my chair.
No, go ahead.
The our disease pressure right now is pretty minimal. We do have preventative apps in the program, but they're limited again due to cost. If I could do one, I mean, I can't. It's tough.
You just can't do that much fungicide.
You can't do them every 10 days. And so again, we've incorporated, things into the, mix that we can get it to extend, you know what I mean? So we get longer, like in between apps.
Right.
I've got another tech working. So our application timing has really gotten really good over the years.
Well, that is important.
You know what I'm saying? So that's definitely critical. But again, if the soil's right, then there's not a whole lot of manipulation that you need to do. And again, I think that the healthier the plant can be, the less likely it's going to be susceptible to the disease. It's not that it's not there, but when it's cleaned up a lot quicker.
It doesn't take it out. It doesn't.
It really
doesn't take out stands of turf.
Exactly. And so that's kind of that to me. I mean, I had a guy this year that he's my closest friend, man, and we grew up together, man. And he's the only guy that I talked to about, the only guy in the industry I talked to really about, one of the only guys anyway, that's kind of knows the ins and outs. But he was asking me this year, he's like, dude, what are you doing with your properties with the disease, man? And it's always like, I love having those conversations with you because it's like, dude, I don't think that you understand really that if the dirt is good, like your plant's going to be good. Mm-hmm. Like if you just don't, like that's the key to me. You can dump even with nitrogen, you can dump a ton of nitrogen to make it green, but if the bottom of it is crap, you're wasting a ton of money. You're putting out a ton of salt. You're doing all this stuff, man, that you're not,
That's ultimately going to hurt you.
Yeah, you can paint the grass green.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Like you can, that's the technology you have right now.
Oh, yeah.
But, when you got to balance, you got clients that have kids or pets and they're concerned about what they consume and the impact of chemicals, and you're dealing with EPA regulations and state regulations and all these things, man. I want to do as little as possible just because I don't want to deal with a headache or the exposure risk of dealing with that stuff. Mm-hmm. So
you can pull out your queen and take out a bunch of pawns, but you're opening yourself up to attack.
Exactly, man. So you just kind of, we just had to kind of, the way that I kind of just told everybody on staff, I said, listen, this is what we're going to do and we're going to stick through it. It's either going to work or it's not. And it worked. And I knew it was going to work because I really feel that, there's just the market is saturated with average companies. And especially on the turf care side, there's a ton of franchises out there. Mm-hmm. Without naming any names, they're some of the largest, lawn care, grossing companies in the country. Mm-hmm. But in terms of product, like we're never going to be able to beat them on price ever. So if we can't beat them on price, we're going to focus on the quality. So that's what we decided to do. And now it's become to the point where we're getting phone calls because that's what we do.
Yeah, because the customer can tell the difference between a 6 and a 9, Totally. They you can tell that. And so, and you're providing 9s.
Yeah, no, that's been the goal, and that will continue to be the goal. And again, we really do, as far as, the soil works and how we implement that in the program, we really try to focus on, the Cal-Mag ratio, potassium levels, making sure that really that's the main thing that really we try to focus on from an economic standpoint with the customer. Mm-hmm. It's really arguably that Cal-Mag ratio is the most critical.
The most important.
So if we could dial that in and with the potassium as well, then we started to see our pH drop. We started to see our organic matter go up. We started to see our phosphorus level out. It's like all these other things we started to see happening just by focusing on little bits and just staying the course over time and just reminding people it's a process. It's like if you don't, deal with people that don't really understand that, maintaining the lawn is going to be ongoing. It's never going to stop. If you don't want to treat the weeds or you don't really care what it looks like, I'm not the company for you. Yeah, because it's never going to go away. And if you go with if you kind of go the cheap route, it'll work for a while until everything in the ground is burned up and then you have to start from scratch again.
Uh-huh.
We just, again, I think that I feel like I just said, you know what, I know what I'm doing. I believe in, the guys that I'm working with. I'm just going to tap into the whole idea that, soul's where it's at, and I'm not going to look back. And the people, like I said, people just have to figure out a way to deal with it, man. And
yeah, and customer retention's excellent. They're pleased.
Yeah, no, definitely, man. So we're trying, and like I said, this year we're shifting focus really to give back to our customers that way and say, listen, man, we are thankful that you've stuck with us and you believe in what we're doing, and we want to make the barrier to entry to work with us high.
Yeah.
And so we don't want to just take on people that are looking for somebody to take care of their lawn. We want someone who's going to stay with us year after year, because we don't want to look for new business. We want to make sure that you don't go anywhere. You know what I mean?
Right,
So,
right. So I don't want my techs to be running around, getting new business and then not be able to take care of you.
Yeah, and that's really like, my guys, we don't work on like a production model at all. So like trying to get X amount of houses done. When I say that, my guys, have to do a certain amount of work, based on your work day in terms of how you bill and whatnot. But
Sure.
in terms of the turf side of it, you just can't rush it. And it's worked out. There was definitely some times where I was like, man, I can't believe what we did. Even internally, I was like, without saying anything, I was like, oh my gosh, man, this is the worst idea ever, man. This is going to totally tank. And my dad was like, you're dumb. You know what I mean? Like, this is the dumbest thing. You got to take all the work that you can. And I'm like, man, we've been in business for 30 plus years. We bought the company. They've been in business almost 35 years at that point, man. Wow. 33, something like that now.
Yeah.
And I said, man, at this point, you don't need to take everybody. Like you can't. Like you just can't. It just can't sustain it.
Right.
So yeah, man. So that's kind of,
Dude,
a lot of process.
So grateful for you for getting on this podcast, but also just the friendship that we've had for
likewise, man.
It is it's a lot. It makes this a lot of fun.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I love doing stuff like this. I think that I wish more people would tap into Relay, because I think that you're in the green industry, so to speak.
Right.
You know what I mean? But you could argue there's not a lot of green practices sometimes.
No. And green can mean green lawns and good for the earth.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally think it can. I really just think it means education is just a slow process. You know what I mean? So, just getting people dialed in and getting them plugged into the right information, man. So, and sometimes you just got to buff the system a little bit and, do what you got to do. You know what I mean?
That's it. Take risks and hope it works out.
No,
but know that you're doing the right thing. I mean, you've repeated a number of times. You were steadfast to the fact that you knew what the right path was, and if you just kept following it, then it would work out.
Yeah, no, I do. I believe that. I definitely like it. I have total peace of mind with that. You know what I mean? I never wanted to be in a position, that I felt like I was selling somebody on something. I wanted them to be like, man, they're really just buying what we're, I just don't want to be that guy. I just didn't want to be that guy. I wanted them to make the decision and feel comfortable. And I wanted to be able to go to bed, knowing that I was putting out, something good for people.
Well, the results speak for themselves, and thank you so much, Jay.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, man. So.
All right.
Cool.